Good morning. It's Miss Bailey here, and I'm just recording a little video of some ideas I had, ways that an SOL curriculum specialist might be helpful to both teachers and students, just to be more successful um, on their SOL test. And not that it's all about the test, but we want the test to reflect what they've actually been taught and their knowledge. And there are certain things that can help improve their performance on a test that should be explicitly taught throughout the year, not just assumed that they're going to get it on test day. So I created a couple of questions from a Power School, set of questions, a small 2-question assessment that I thought these questions do a good job of showing how we need to dissect and analyze some of the test questions, help students become aware of not just vocabulary, but certain testing words, buzzwords like least or not, which one is not, things that can trip a student up when they're testing, but that are very easily avoided mistakes if we make students more aware of those words. So, and then I also brought up the Desmos calculator here. My thought was that, videos could be created to help both teachers and students, maybe videos that were accessible on SharePoint to help students practice with the calculator, getting familiar with not just math tools, but all tools. But especially with math, it is important to practice with these things, not just test day and not just, the week before testing, but throughout the year. But I think that, teachers get very busy and it can be hard sometimes to create your own materials. So if there were videos available for them to access, kind of walking students through it, it might be easier on them. They could assign it at a computer station or something like that where they're not having to create their own. So those are just some thoughts I had. So the first question that I brought up at first glance seems pretty simple. Look at the line plot. How many paper airplanes are at least 8 inches long? So, okay, we've got a line plot. We've got numbers and X's, not super complicated at first glance. My feeling is I picked this question because I think a lot of students would look at that 8 and go, oh, this is so easy. And they're going to click on 4 because they see 4 X's above the 8 and they're going to move on. Or if it's a short answer, short response, they're going to type in 4 and move on. And so the words at least here are those kind of buzzwords that we need to make kids aware of, that, when you see those words, at least, not, more than, we want to stop and think about that. What does that mean? At least 8 means 8 or more. 9 is at least 8. 10 is at least 8. 11, and 12, they're all at least 8. So I think it's important. This would be not a real difficult question for students. They should be able to be successful on this. But if they're rushing or if they're not stopping and really thinking about what that means and they just click an answer or type 4 and move on, then that would be a mistake that could be easily avoided. So here they want to obviously count the 4 that are above the 8, but then we've got 2 more above 9, so that's 6. 3 more above 10, so that's 9, 10. 10 paper airplanes were at least 8 inches long. So just small little things like that, practicing with the kids, can make a huge difference overall on their outcome. And then the second question I had, a clothing store at the mall had a spring sale. They recorded the number of customers in the store each day. What is the mean number of customers that shopped in the clothing store during the sale? Round your answer to the nearest whole number. Okay, so the obvious thing is here they have to know what mean is, vocabulary word there. And, if they've been taught the curriculum, they should have practiced what mean is. But sometimes using the calculator, they can know what mean is, but the process, if it's not done correctly, You can know what it is, do all the steps, but if you just one little thing towards the end of the process, and you can get the wrong answer. So what I would want to do with students is, besides explaining what mean is and how we find it, have them practice on the calculator, and not only show them the correct way to do it, but show them what can happen if they miss a step with this. Because we know in finding the mean, we're finding an average. So we're going to add up all of our data and divide by the number of data that's being added. But the key part is to find that sum before we divide. We have to get a total or a sum before we divide. And that's a common mistake that can completely throw off or skew your answer. So I will show them correctly how to find the answer a couple of different ways, but then what not to do, because it would be a shame to know what it is, know the process, and just because you put something wrong in the calculator, then you end up with a wrong answer or a missed test question that really should not have been missed. So I'm going to first count how many days that we're adding up here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm going to do that twice. And that's something that also needs to be pointed out with students, is especially with mean, or anytime that you're working with a lot of data, a lot of different numbers, do it at least twice, because it's so easy to miscount or type something in incorrectly. So do it at least twice. If you don't get the same answer, do it a third time until you get the same answer twice in a row. So I'm going to count these again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. Okay, I've got the same answer twice, so I probably don't need to do it a third time. Now I'm going to add these up, but before I start adding in my calculator here, I'm going to use a parentheses to group all these numbers as I add them, because it's very important to get that sum before I divide. And I'm going to show why that is, what can happen if you don't do that. So I'm going to start with a parentheses, and I'm going to start adding all my numbers here. So I've got 25 plus 45 plus 29 plus 48 plus 28 plus 36 plus 31 plus 39 plus 41 plus 64 plus 53 plus 47. And I'm going to close my parentheses now. And that's so important because I want to get that sum, which, again, using these words continuously throughout the year gets them more familiar with vocabulary instead of waiting until the end, right before the test, trying to cram all this into a few weeks before the test. So sum is an answer to an addition problem. So I'm going to get that answer first. Once I've gotten the answer, because I use my parentheses to group these, then I can divide by 12, which is the number of data entries that I was adding together. Added together 12 numbers. I'm going to divide by 12 after I close my parentheses and get the sum. And so my answer is 40.5. I'm going to move this over a little bit and make sure. Yeah, 40.5 is the whole answer. So, and then it says round to the nearest whole number. So that would be another skill. There's a couple of different skills here besides knowing mean and knowing how to use the calculator correctly, then also how to round. So the nearest whole number is going to be 41. So I'm going to show another way that you can get this answer correctly. using the Desmos calculator. And again, we want to have them practice with the calculator. So I would think that maybe setting up videos with questions that are, particularly geared towards or pointed towards a specific skill that can be problematic on the calculator, like a mean problem, and setting up a test where they can practice certain questions and practice using the calculator and getting the answer, would be important to do throughout the year, maybe at a computer station, not waiting until the very end SOL testing time. All right, so I'm going to clear all this, and I'm going to show it's another way that we can do this. And we really want to pick, so whichever way is best, have a student pick a way and practice that way continuously. But another way we could find the answer, I'm going to add up all these data numbers again, and I'm going to get that sum first. That means I'm getting the answer to the addition problem before I divide anything. I'm going to get that sum, that answer to the addition problem before I divide. So 25 plus 45 plus 29 plus 48 plus 28 plus 36 plus 31 plus 30. Okay, I put all my numbers in, but now I can hit enter. I want to get that total. And then I want to get answer divided by 12. So I had to, and I still end up with that same 40 and 5/10, which rounds to 41. But it was very important for me to get that answer, that sum, before dividing. Why? Well, I'm going to show you why. What happens if you don't do that? If you just put it in as one long string and you don't get that total, 486, before you divide, you'll get a different answer. So this is what not to do. But I think it's important. You don't want kids to practice what not to do, but it's important to show them not to do it because it's a very common error. And they may understand mean and they may understand how to round, and they could still miss the question over something very simple and careless like putting it in the calculator wrong. So I'm going to add this up, 25 plus 45 plus 29 plus 48 plus 36. And if you have some higher level students, it might be fun to kind of have them come up with what they think might happen or what's going on, what the problem is with doing it this way. Kind of get them thinking about that before you show them or explain to them. Because, well, and also understanding the curriculum at this point in the year when you are doing measures of central tendency, mean they have already learned order of operations, so they should understand that division is performed before addition, and they may make that connection. So if you have higher functioning students, it might be kind of fun to just play around and see what they come up with. Okay, so I put all my numbers in. I've added all these numbers up, and now I'm just going to divide by 12 here to get my mean. Bam. Didn't come out the way I thought it was going to. I didn't get, my brain should be going, if I'm averaging all these numbers, 414 does not make sense. So that's another good teachable moment, I guess, with the students is to say, when you get an answer and you're going, that does not make sense. I know what a mean is. It's an average of all those numbers. Shouldn't be that much bigger. Shouldn't be bigger at all. Shouldn't be way bigger than my data. So my brain should be going, I may have put everything in the calculator, but that can't be the right answer. So obviously what happened is that the calculator is going to divide that last number 47 by 12. It's not dividing the entire sum by 12. So that's an important thing to point out to the students, because a very common error would just be, oh, I know, I add all these up and divide by 12. I got this. Why is my answer 414? So this is just a kind of simple thing that given a little bit of instruction along the way throughout the year, that kids can be a lot more successful, because they may very well know what mean is and how to find it, but just a small little thing like that, adding the parentheses to get the sum first, having them practice it that way, or showing them that they have to get the answer to the addition problem, and then when they have their answer, then they can divide. So another thing that is important to practice throughout the year is just using the tools and playing around with them. And typically kids enjoy this anyway. There's not a lot of pressure to get a right answer. It's just kind of like a computer game or whatever. They're playing around with the tools. So, obviously TestNav has a place where you can practice these tools, but just making sure that they're practicing, but also with a little bit of guidance and instruction, where again, a video could do that. Hey, click on the protractor and, or click on the centimeter ruler, things like that, where a video can guide them to make sure that they're using it, not just being silly. And sometimes they'll get the highlighter or the drawing tool and just start drawing things. And that's fun, but it's not really necessarily helpful. So they kind of need guidance in how to use the tools. For example, they might be dragging the protractor around and all that, but they may not be lining it up correctly. And so they practiced, but they haven't practiced effectively. So on TestNav, it is important to kind of give them some guided practice with that. They can practice with the inch ruler. But again, here it's important to show them how they have to line it up. Often another common mistake, kids will line it up not at the 0, but at the end of the ruler. So it's important to show them, they know that it's got to be lined up at the 0 mark. So just having them practice with that. Here's the centimeter ruler. Good opportunity just to tell them to pay close attention to what unit of measure the question is asking for, because you could use the ruler perfectly, but if you're measuring in centimeters instead of inches, obviously your answer is going to be a little off. But again, making sure that they are lined up at the 0 and not at the end of the ruler can make a big difference in the accuracy of their answer. And just have them practice kind of rotating. So that's just a little bit with the TestNav SOL tools. Go to the next question. Okay, so this one with the angles would be a good way to start having them practice with the protractor. Even though they may have used a handheld, it's just a little bit different. Trying to use the computer one, drag it around, make sure it's lined up, just right, showing them where on the vertex of the angle to line it up. Making sure that they're starting at 0 versus 180, those kind of things. So just a little bit of practice with this, having them play around, but guided practice, because it'd be very easy for them to line up this protractor incorrectly, maybe putting it here instead of putting that circle or kind of bullseye thing right on the vertex of the angle. Rotate it, making sure that we're starting at 0 and measuring around rather than at 180, things like that. So these are all just simple little things that I felt like videos could be created that were accessible on SharePoint to take something off of teachers' plate so they're not having to recreate it. Or if they want to create their own, just videos giving them ideas of things that they may want to touch on. It's always good to get other input, especially with newer teachers, things they may not be thinking about in terms of vocabulary, little pitfalls to watch out for, and practice with these tools, particularly the calculator. And certain types of problems require a little more practice, I think. So it's important to pick questions that highlight those skills. So that's all I got for today. Just some ideas I had about something an SOL curriculum specialist could do to help teachers and students be more successful when it comes to testing time. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.